Some things, not enough, but some things. We know the inscriptions appear almost exclusively on objects associated with administration and trade. The stone seals were used to stamp clay tags that were attached to goods. Hundreds of these clay tags with seal impressions were found at Lothal, an Indus Valley port town, in a burnt-down warehouse, suggesting they were once attached to traded goods stored there. This suggests the script was used at least partly for administrative or commercial purposes, marking ownership, recording transactions, identifying goods. But here is the thing about that theory. If the script was purely administrative, purely a commercial record-keeping system, then why does the same script appear on objects that look religious, on amulets worn around the neck, on figurines, on objects that seem to have nothing to do with trade or commerce? A 2025 paper by researcher Max Freedom Pollard argued the entire corpus is essentially a system of merchant marks, trade stamps rather than a full written language. But another 2025 computational analysis found evidence of what the researchers called theological and cosmological content, suggesting the script encoded sacred knowledge and ritual invocations. The same 4,000 objects, the same 500 symbols. Two completely opposite conclusions. This is what the Indus script does to brilliant people. It lets you see what you are looking for, and then it refuses to confirm anything. Asko Parpala has spent decades on a specific approach, looking for what he calls the picture puzzle principle. He believes many Indus symbols were originally pictures of real things. And in Dravidian languages, words for different things are sometimes pronounced identically or very similarly. So a symbol that looks like a fish might represent not the word for fish, but a word for something else that sounds the same as the word for fish, the way in English a picture of an eye can represent the word eye. He has found what he believes are dozens of examples of this pattern in the Indus script. The academic community has neither confirmed nor rejected his interpretation conclusively. After 50 years, he keeps working. And this is the point in the story where I want to stop talking about symbols and data for a moment, and talk about what this actually means. Think about the people who made these seals. Not the civilization in the abstract. The actual human beings. Someone sat down 5,000 years ago with a small piece of soft stone and a copper tool and carefully, painstakingly carved these symbols into it. One by one, getting the shapes right. Making sure the inscription was legible, because it needed to be readable. It needed to communicate something to someone else. That person had a name. They had a family. They had a favorite food and a recurring worry and a memory that came to them sometimes in the quiet of the night, and they had something they needed to say. They said it in these symbols, and we cannot hear them. Now multiply that person by 5 million. 5 million people who spoke a language we cannot identify. Who worshipped gods whose names we cannot read. Who had kings or councils or merchants or priests, whose roles we can only guess at. Who built the world's most sophisticated ancient cities and chose not to build palaces or temples or monuments to any individual human being, and whose reasons for that choice we cannot ask them. The silence is not empty. It is full of 5 million lives we cannot reach. The Indus script is not an academic problem. It is a wall between us and the human beings who built the ground beneath our feet. And on the other side of that wall, there are voices we can almost hear. There is one more thing I need to tell you about this mystery. Something that most documentaries about the Indus script quietly avoid. The decipherment of the Indus script, if it ever happens, will not just be a linguistic achievement. It will be a political earthquake. If the script is decoded and the underlying language turns out to be an ancestor of the Dravidian languages, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, then it would suggest the Indus Valley Civilization was the ancestor of South Indian civilization. That would be an enormous claim in a country where language politics are deeply charged. If the script turns out to encode early Sanskrit or Indo-Aryan content, it would support Hindu nationalist narratives about an indigenous Vedic civilization predating any migration into South Asia. The political implications of that would be equally enormous. If the script turns out to be completely unrelated to any living language family, an extinct branch of human linguistic history with no surviving descendants, that would mean the Indus Valley people left no linguistic legacy, which would force a complete rethinking of South Asian linguistic origins. Each of these outcomes has passionate, politically motivated advocates, which is part of why, when Steve Farmer suggested the script might not be a language at all, someone sent him death threats. Because the silence of the Indus script is not just protecting ancient secrets. It is protecting contemporary ones. But something happened in 2025 that gave researchers genuine new hope. The 60% symbol match between the Indus script and ancient Tamil pottery markings found by Rajan and Sivanathan is not just a number. It is a thread. A thread connecting the silent cities of ancient Pakistan to the living culture of modern South India. And if that thread can be traced carefully, if the Tamil pottery markings can be connected to known Tamil words or grammatical structures and those can then be mapped onto the matching Indus symbols, it might provide the first real leverage point anyone has ever had on this problem. Not a Rosetta Stone, something more subtle, more fragile, but potentially real. Nisha Yadav at the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research is currently running machine learning models across the script corpus, looking for patterns that human eyes have missed across 100 years of examination. Her computer has analyzed every symbol sequence ever recorded from every known inscription. The work is ongoing, the prize is unclaimed. The silence continues. There's one object in this entire story that I keep coming back to. At Dholavira, a large Indus Valley city in what is now the Gujarat state of India, archaeologists discovered something that exists nowhere else in the entire corpus of Indus Valley artifacts. A large signboard, not a tiny seal carved in stone. Not a symbol scratched onto a pot. A large inscription, 10 symbols, that once hung above the northern gate of the city. The letters were made of white gypsum inlaid into a wooden board, large enough to be read from a distance. The kind of thing you would put above the entrance to a city so that people arriving could read it. A welcome sign, a proclamation, an announcement to every person who entered through that gate. It is the only large public inscription ever found in the entire Indus Valley Civilization. It has been sitting there, or rather, what remains of the impression it left has been sitting there, waiting to be read for 4,000 years, and we cannot read it. What did the city of Dholavira want you to know when you walked through its gates? Was it the city's name? The name of its founder? A blessing? A law? A warning? We do not know. The signboard spoke to every person who entered that city for hundreds of years. And now it speaks to no one. Here's what I believe, and I want to be clear that this is not a scientific claim. It is a human one. The silence of the Indus script is the most honest thing about the civilization that produced it. Because everything else about the Indus Valley Civilization speaks of a people who chose public welfare over personal glory, who built sewers instead of monuments, who made standardized bricks instead of royal palaces, who left us toys and board games and beautiful jewelry instead of war records and conquest lists. Maybe it is not surprising that their writing is hard to reach. Maybe a civilization that refused to glorify any individual was never going to leave us a king's inscription in 3 languages, conveniently carved on a stone for the next civilization to find. Their silence is consistent with everything else they did. They built for the living, not for posterity. They wrote for each other, not for us. And somewhere in those 5,000 small inscriptions, on seals smaller than your palm, on pots shattered and reassembled, on copper tablets found as far away as ancient Mesopotamia, they are still talking. We just have not learned to listen yet. $1 million sits unclaimed. Ascoparpala keeps working. Nisha Yadav's algorithm keeps running. And in a museum case somewhere, a small stone seal with 5 symbols sits under glass. Ascoparpala keeps working. Waiting. Patient in the way that only very old things can be patient. With something to say. The silence between civilizations is not empty. It is full of things we have not yet learned to hear. This channel exists to listen. If this stayed with you, subscribe. Next week we go to a site in Baluchistan, Pakistan that is 9,000 years old. A site where the world's first dentist worked. Where the world's first cotton was grown. And where in April 2025, scientists published a discovery that completely rewrote the story of how human civilization began. The silence keeps going deeper. We keep following it.